In Exodus chapter 3, Moses saw one of the strangest signs in the Bible. A bush was on fire. That part is remarkable enough. But here is the detail that changed everything. The bush was not burning up. The fire was real. The flames were visible. Moses could see them clearly from a distance. But the bush itself, the branches, the leaves, the dry desert wood, remained completely untouched. It did not char. It did not shrink. It did not fall into ash. And that is the detail that should stop us. Because in the ancient world, in the middle of a dry wilderness, a burning bush that is not consumed is not just unusual, it is impossible. And Moses knew it. To understand what happens at this moment, we need to understand who Moses is, not who he will become. Who he is right now in Exodus chapter 3. Moses was born a Hebrew, but he was raised in Egypt, in Pharaoh's household. He grew up with power, education, and status. Then he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave. He intervened. The Egyptian died, and Moses fled. That was 40 years ago. He is now in the wilderness of Midian. He is working for his father-in-law, Jethro. He is a shepherd. This is not a man at the height of his powers. This is a man who tried to act and failed. A man who left Egypt in shame, not in triumph. He is not on a mission. He is watching sheep near a mountain called Horeb. It is also called Sinai. The text calls it the mountain of God. That detail matters. Moses is doing ordinary work on an ordinary day, near an extraordinary place he does not yet understand. And then he sees the fire. The text in Exodus chapter 3 is precise. Moses sees a bush that is blazing with fire. And he looks, and the bush is not consumed. That word, consumed, is important. To consume means to use up, to exhaust, to reduce to nothing. Fire consumes. That is what it does. That is what it has always done. But this fire does not. And Moses says something that tells us everything we need to know about him in this moment. He says, I will turn aside and see this great sight. Why is the bush not burned? He turns aside. He does not run. He does not dismiss it. He does not assume there is a natural explanation. He walks toward the thing he does not understand. And that decision, that small, deliberate turn, is the moment that changes his life. Because God was waiting for exactly that. The text says, when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush. God was watching to see if Moses would look closer. And Moses did. To understand why God appeared in fire, we need to understand what fire means in Scripture. Fire in the Bible is never a simple symbol. It carries several meanings at once. Fire means judgment. Fire means holiness. Fire means presence. Fire means purification. And fire means revelation. When God descended on Mount Sinai to give the law, the mountain burned with fire. When God led Israel through the wilderness at night, he appeared as a pillar of fire. When the priests consecrated the tabernacle, fire came down from the presence of God and consumed the offering. Fire, in Scripture, marks the place where God is. It also marks the problem. Because fire and holiness together create a very serious question for human beings. If God is holy, truly holy, then what happens when unholy things come near him? The answer, throughout the Old Testament, is consistent. They are consumed. So when Moses sees fire in the wilderness, he is not just seeing a natural phenomenon. He is seeing the presence of the living God. And the bush should not still be there. God calls to Moses from the fire. He says, Moses, Moses. Moses answers, Here I am. And then God says something unexpected. Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. This requires a pause. The ground is not made of anything special. It is the same desert floor Moses has walked across 1,000 times. But God is present there, and that presence changes everything about it. The sandals are not ceremonial. They are practical. In the ancient world, Removing your sandals before entering a sacred space was a sign of humility and submission. It was a physical posture that said, I acknowledge that the normal rules do not apply here. It was also a way of recognizing the difference between the one who stands on holy ground and the ground itself. Moses is not holy. The ground is not holy by nature. But God is present, and His presence makes the ordinary extraordinary. This is one of the consistent patterns in Scripture. Holiness is not a property of objects or places. It is the result of proximity to God. Now we come to the heart of this moment. The bush is burning. God's holiness is real and present and visible. And the bush is not consumed. This is not a paradox. It is a pattern. It is the pattern of holy presence without destruction. God does not stop being holy when He appears to Moses. He does not reduce Himself. He does not dim the fire. The fire is real. The holiness is real. But the purpose of this appearance is not judgment. It is not to destroy Moses, or the bush, or the ground. It is to call. There is a difference between God's presence coming in judgment and God's presence coming in commission. Both are holy. Both are serious. Both require humility. But one ends in destruction, and the other ends in a mission. The burning bush is God saying, I am here, I am holy, and I have chosen not to consume you, because I have something for you to do. God then speaks at length. He identifies Himself. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hides his face, because he is afraid to look at God. That response is not weakness, it is accuracy. Moses understands in this moment that he is standing in front of something that could end him. And God does not dismiss that fear. He acknowledges who He is. He allows Moses to feel the weight of the moment. And then He gives him a task. God has seen the suffering of Israel in Egypt. He has heard their cries. And He is sending Moses back to the place Moses fled, to bring His people out. Moses pushes back. He says he is nobody. He says he does not know what to call God. He says the people will not believe him. He says he is not a good speaker. He gives 5 objections, and God answers everyone. The burning bush is not just a miracle. It is the place where Moses becomes part of something larger than himself. The fire that did not consume the bush will go with him. The God who called from the fire will speak through him. The holy presence that could have destroyed Moses instead sends him. This moment at Horeb does not stand alone. The same pattern, holy fire that calls, rather than consumes, appears throughout the rest of Scripture. At Sinai, fire covers the mountain when God gives the law. The people are told to keep their distance, but Moses goes up into the fire. And he comes back down alive. In the wilderness, the pillar of fire does not burn Israel. It guides them. It stands between them and their enemies. In the tabernacle, fire descends from God's presence and rests on the altar. It is tended carefully. It is holy. It is not wild. And then, in Acts chapter 2, on the day of Pentecost, something new happens. Tongues of fire appear. Not on a mountain, not on an altar, on people. The same holy fire that burned at Horeb, that could not be explained, that did not consume the bush, comes to rest on ordinary men and women in Jerusalem. And they go out, not destroyed, not overwhelmed, called, sent. The pattern holds. From the wilderness to the upper room, God's holy fire marks the moment of calling, not the moment of consumption. Here is something worth sitting with. Many people carry a quiet fear about God, not a philosophical fear, a personal one, the kind that says, if God truly saw me, clearly, fully, without any distance, I would not survive it. I would be exposed. I would be consumed. I would not be enough, and that fear is not entirely wrong. God is holy, truly holy, not a slightly better version of us. There is a real difference between who He is and who we are. The burning bush does not pretend that distance is nothing. Moses hid his face. The ground required humility. The fire was real. But the bush was not consumed, and Moses was not consumed. The fire came near, and instead of destroying him, it defined him. It gave him a name, a task, and a presence that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Holy fire does not only expose, it also calls. It also purifies. It also sends. That is what the burning bush shows us. Not that God's holiness is less than we thought, but that His mercy is greater. Moses was no one special in this moment. He was a failed leader, an exile, a shepherd. He was standing in a wilderness he did not choose, watching sheep he did not own, near a mountain he did not yet understand. And God appeared in fire, and the bush was not consumed, and Moses turned aside to look, and everything changed. So here is the question to leave you with. Quiet, simple, worth carrying. What if the fire you fear, the one that feels like it would expose everything, is not coming to destroy you? What if it is coming to call you,